right? So a culture cannot be shaped by one person, even though as a leader or entrepreneur, you have a big influence in how it happens. But I think it's also important to recognize that there are some individuals that no matter how much you try to positively influence, they somehow just don't come around and they're not aligned, and you'll be like, okay, this is not a good fit for our company, right? So, and then that's
that,
like each their own.
Welcome back to Wise and Shine. I'm your host Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut.
And I'm Dawn, Budget Babe. Today we're going to talk about toxic work cultures.
A lot of things to talk about. Yes.
What's the title?
Yeah. So today we're going to talk about how not to build a toxic work culture. Okay, and we have same guest in the house, right, Carrie, to spend more time with us, right? So, what makes you the right person to talk about this?
I love to talk about culture, provide some insights about what I know about people and how cultures are formed. And a toxic workplace, people may use the term very loosely and casually, but they may not
these days is a
really
thing,
know
right?
what exactly do you mean by a toxic workplace. So if you examine it closely, a toxic workplace is when people start feeling a lot of negative emotions and they feel like there's a lot of negative interactions, they don't feel supported, and then eventually it drives them away to want to go to another job. But I wanted to share a little bit of insight from an emotional management and self-awareness point of view to help illuminate what really contributes to a toxic workplace culture. And the answer is, it's not necessarily the bosses.
Okay, interesting. And actually, right, a side question, when I look at your LinkedIn and I get to know you, out of your parliament speeches, right, you're very spiritual. Right, it's and it's very healing, which is cool. But what is someone like you, being in parliament and doing all the other things that you do? Because I find it quite
cannot reconcile.
Cannot reconcile. like this person is like very healing and all that, and want to talk to me about how to not build a toxic work culture. But then what are you doing in parliament? You know what I mean? So like, how do you kind of reconcile? How would you reconcile
I'm curious,
that?
what is it? What is the impression that you have about people in parliament? Because
Very
in my world,
serious,
people are very serious. You can be serious and spiritual at the same time.
Fair.
Most of the people I know in parliament from my party are there because of good intentions. They want to serve people, they want to help people, and that stems from a very deeply personal space, like the desire to serve and the desire to make an impact and make a difference to other people. So there's actually no conflict.
So you don't feel that there's a need to reconcile this? It's just two different facets of your life.
I think it's just how people imagine or certain ideas that associate with being spiritual, like you must be very, or some people don't understand spiritual, they associate that with being religious, and like you cannot be religious in parliament because in Singapore we are multi-religious and all that. So I've actually realized that one of the perhaps value that I can add in terms of being a healing coach is to help people explore the notion of secular spirituality. You don't necessarily need to be religious to access spirituality, because spirituality is about really connecting with your own spirit, about connecting with who you are deep down inside your true self.
Fair. So how do you then bring that energy to work then? That type of, because like we want to talk a little bit about like maybe building a toxic work culture is not just a leader thing, right? But before that, I'm quite curious, how do you bring that spirituality, that wholeness into your work or whatever work that you do?
So I think in my work as a change maker, in my work in the community, in my work as a parliamentarian, we work with people every day, and people with varying kinds of emotions, different kinds of problems, and they're troubled. And being able to detach yourself, to have a clear view about what's happening in order that we can hold a space for another human being is like a superpower that I've discovered that we can develop in ourselves to be more effective. As a boss, as a leader, as a manager, as a change maker, as someone who's just being there for my constituent.
Fair. Okay, so that I hope the listeners get to know your insights and your ideas a little bit better. They get to know you, right? So from there, then the question is, what is a toxic work culture, right? Like what do you think is a toxic work culture? How do you describe, or do you have a definition?
I love what Carrie said to sum up what a toxic work culture was. Like negative energy, feelings until it drives the person away. But maybe we can be like more, I can contribute more specific examples of features. I think for me, and I've shared this story before on one of our previous episodes, it's a workplace where you have backstabbers and you don't know who those backstabbers are until later. So then it becomes very draining because you're constantly on your feet. You don't know if you can trust the person. You may like the person, but maybe it's fake, right? And I have been in situations like that. It's very draining, and I always, like, the first thing I always think of is I want to get out. And I've seen how these cultures drive away the staff. Yeah, but it is hard sometimes because, like what you say, right? Sometimes it's not about the leader. These are about the people. Can the leader then, like, in a room full of snakes and fakes, what can the leader do to, like, short of firing everybody and building from scratch? How do you even change that? Sometimes it's a person thing.
You have loaded a special word, snakes and fakes. This experience must be very strong.
I have seen it happen.
Yeah.
I have been in those cultures, and it's very tiring because I want to be in a workplace whereby everyone embraces each other for it. We all know that we will all make mistakes, but we don't call out each other in a very negative way, in a way that doesn't harm the other person's career.
Do
right?
these kind of places even exist?
They do. Why not?
No, as in like whatever you've described is what it is, right? Like the whole gong like that, right? No, but I'm talking about the positive workplace that
Yes.
you're trying to describe, right? Which is an alternative to that,
Yes,
right?
my
Like,
corporate job.
so you think that
Yes, I love my corporate workplace right now. And the reason why I went back, even though I had to take some time off to spend with my family due to the surgery, but I went back because, like, the culture was just so nice. And, like, last week, for example, or actually not last week, like, it's been ongoing for a few months, right? We had this task that is really important, and I got annoyed because I kept saying, like, hey, I sent it, like, in March, and now we're in April, still nothing. And I asked my bosses, can you please go and chase? Okay, and then it escalated until, like, 3 levels up. But never once did my bosses, any of the 3 levels, right, pin it on the person being incompetent or being lazy or being a horrible worker. It was always of, oh, I know him or her. Or usually very fast one. Must
So
be
it's a
something
him
has
lah.
happened. You know, they're just very nice and understanding about it. And they say, let's follow up more. Let's not jump to conclusion. Let's not, based on this one interaction, ruin the impression you have of your colleague.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, if the boss say otherwise, I will judge the boss because it's one anomaly
But
point,
you see,
and
that's
then
the
you
thing. But
evaluate.
there are workplaces where the bosses or the colleagues are like that, right?
Okay,
So like
okay.
my current workplace on a corporate level, I feel is really great because they build it. And I mean, to be fair, it started as a startup, right? So they were all about cultures, make sure that people feel very, connected to the company and they don't leave for greener pastures. But I have also been in very toxic workplaces where there's a lot of all these backstabbing. And it's just really scary because when I am on the receiving end and I learn that this person backstabbed me, I'm like, wow. And I totally trusted that person. I told him or her, like, maybe not my deepest, but I did confide in that person. And now I'm like, what else did the person use against me? And I think that's just very, very toxic. And as much as I can, when I'm in those situations, I will leave. Even if the pay is very good, not worth.
Okay, fair.
I think that will be one feature
Of a toxic workplace.
Yeah, backstabbers and knives everywhere. You don't even know where.
Okay.
What about you? You have been in toxic workplaces before, right? What do you think are some features?
Okay, the beauty of being an entrepreneur is you build the place, right? It's a little bit different from being thrown into a place, right? So I mean, maybe you should interview my guys, whether I create a toxic work culture for them. But I feel like it's okay, lor. I don't think my team has a toxic work culture. I think there will definitely be friction because there's different styles and people don't come to you in a clean slate, right? They have their experiences, so sometimes you gotta unwind some of those experiences. Some bars have to be set, some lines have to be drawn. So yeah, I don't feel like my team is very toxically.
Yes,
You can put in the comment section anonymously, okay? You put there, then we see.
Expose Reggie as the
Expose
boss.
Reggie as the boss. Yeah.
What are some of the most toxic features that you've
Actually,
seen?
I've been listening to your conversation and I just want to contribute some food for thought. What I discovered is that people don't go to work, bosses don't go to work, colleagues don't go to work, leaders don't go to work saying, oh, today I'm going there to build a toxic work culture. And really, to each their own. There are people who thrive in the snakes and fakes environment, right? It's just not for you. People who thrive in, conniving, scheming, like outwitting each other, etc. It's just not for you. But what I've discovered, like when we use the word toxic too loosely, like sometimes we see it on social media, they say, oh, I gotta declutter my life from my toxic friend, toxic mother, toxic everything. What I realized, and I would like to invite you to consider, like, have you ever come across a situation where there are three people, right? Person A, person B, person C. Maybe they're friends. Somehow, person A is always triggered by person C, but person B is like, nothing much. So the same person C, exact same behavior, same manner of speech, same reaction, same behavior, is triggering to one person and not triggering to the other person. So what it tells me is that whether or not you're triggered, whether or not you experience something negative from another person's behavior is entirely to do with your own inner state and whether you happen to have some unhealed wounds that is responding to a particular kind of behavior or mannerism or words and gestures by somebody else. And I think environments or workplaces become toxic when people don't feel safe. And the function of safety in an environment is not just about whether the company is intentional about building a safe culture, right? It's also very much to do with whether the person inherently is able to trust. So I've encountered many individuals who, because of previous bad experiences in their corporate life, like maybe they've had one or two very bad bosses, that wound still hurts, right? So, and creates a lens on the way we see things, the way we perceive things. So even though subsequently they might find a job at a really nice company with nice bosses and all that, they have that wound and it clouds the way they see things and they perceive things. So at the slightest trigger, they think that it's the same nightmare all over again. And then, you notice that they keep switching jobs and never finding stability. Then in those cases, what I would strongly encourage the individual to do is look into, do you have a pair of lens on that you're not aware of that is caused by previous baggage? And this is also very common because, for example, in women's empowerment, right? I think in recent years, we've seen so much talk and so much action being taken at corporate environments, allyship, sponsorship, and, companies just giving a lot more opportunities to women. But despite all this enablement, some women just feel like they cannot. So there's like an inner barrier. They can't get over certain beliefs and certain things that they need to be in order to be something else. So that is also, an example of when a particular pair of lenses is clouding us to what is actually happening in front of us and could be causing our inability to share our feelings and inability to trust people at our workplace as well. And that then inadvertently contributes to the whole environment of culture, right? So a culture cannot be shaped by one person, even though as a leader or entrepreneur, you have a big influence in how it happens. But I think it's also important to recognize that there are some individuals that no matter how much you try to positively influence, they somehow just don't come around and they're not aligned. And you'll be like, okay, this is not a good fit for our company, right? So, and then that's
that.
like each their own.
Okay, interesting. So fundamentally, what I'm hearing is there's no objective like toxic place, right? On some level, it's your interaction with the place or your interaction with the workplace. There is one layer of that, how you perceive that.
I hesitate to go there too because I think there are also certain places where there is just poor management of bad behaviors, right? So if there is poor management of bad behaviors, then that is then some, I think, accountability on the management or leadership side to look into. And that could stem from, for example, leaders who are not adept at managing people and emotions. So they avoid it and it festers and they're not doing anything about it. And then that's not managed well. So that can definitely exist as well.
Okay.
So for managers and leaders who want to encourage this sort of open communication.
Wait, before we go there, right? I just want to let Carrie share a little bit about then what is a good workplace. So if we establish that okay, there's all these things, some of it is toxic, some of it is your lens, and some is just cause your manager very lousy, right? Which is there's
room to grow.
Yeah, there's room to. Room to grow is such a positive spin on your manager's very lousy. Okay, anyway, so
it's just not an empowering thing to say to anybody, isn't it? Like, then there's like a judgment say, okay, then no opportunities to
That's why you're not.
Yeah. But can improve. Yeah. I'm an operator, right? It's different, okay? But can improve, huh? Okay, so all that as the basis, then we move towards understanding like what do you think objectively is a great workplace, healthy, good workplace?
A healthy workplace, would be a place where people feel that it's okay to speak their minds respectfully, openly, without fear of judgment, without fear of invalidation. So I think listening skills is very important. Being able to acknowledge and communicate well, to listen and hold space for people's feelings and your own as well is very important. It's such an underrated and underemphasized skill, because I think when people learn to really listen well, then it solves a lot of things. It solves a lot of miscommunication. It solves a lot of unhappiness that comes from being unheard. It solves a lot of misunderstandings that can get in the way of team effectiveness. So listening well is really, really important. But unfortunately, most of the time, people are not listening. They look like they're listening to you, but in their mind, something else is processing, right? They could be formulating a response to you, or they are just not there. So mindful presence, I think this is something that if every organization can invest some time, effort, and intentionality to train how to listen well and respond in a nurturing manner, a lot of workplaces will suddenly transform. But it takes time. It takes time, because it's not like, today all of us are nurturing listeners. Everybody will then have solved their inner trust issues, right? So the other factor is not dealt with. So people have to do their own work and look into what is it that's preventing them from trust. Because if everybody else decides, hey, we're going to be, supportive to one another, but inside yourself, the cynical monster is still there, you're not going to be able to receive the love, so-called. Yeah. So it takes both hands to clap.
I want to ask, in this age whereby a lot of people, the lines between like friendships and work and personal lives are starting to blur, how important do you think an aspect of having a good workplace needs to be one whereby you have colleagues whom you would like to meet outside of work hours?
If it's important to you, it's important to you. It may not be important to another person. So I think if you want to make your life easier, find people who are like-minded and be discerning who you decide to be open and vulnerable to. I think that's just, everyday wisdom that can help you. But if you do want to grow and stretch yourself, then go hang out with people who are not like-minded from you, to discover a different perspective, discover a different way of seeing things. And I think that can also enrich us in very different manners. But I think one mistake that people make is they expect everybody else to be like them. So I think that's not a very realistic thing to do. But you can definitely choose your company. You could say, I'm going to spend this amount of my time at work, but I prefer to have my personal life somewhere else and have time for that and space for that. That's perfectly okay. Some people feel like, I spend so much time at work because I love my job. I would love to have friends at my workplace. And then that's also a possibility that's for you to forge.
I love it. And whereby this would be healthy also would be then in the after work activities, those who do want to hang out would not judge the ones who chose to go home and spend time with their family.
Yeah, I think just having respect for everybody's own preferences is something that, can make the world a better place.
Interesting.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
So you're defining a good one of the parameters of a good workplace is to feel okay to speak their minds without fear of judgment, right? So how can a workplace kind of do that, right? Because you're talking a little bit about listening, and I wanted to go further on that.
What steps can they take to build or foster these?
I
what you
think
believe
there are
is
many corporate training companies nowadays who are now offering similar or this kind of content about empathic listening. Or we have a lot of this kind of training in the non-profit sector because we are in social services and we are working with people, helping them through difficult circumstances. But I think the skills of empathic listening is important in the corporate environment as well, because it's not like in the community you're a human being, at work you're not a human being. It doesn't work that way. We're all human beings, we're all feeling something. I think and building emotional awareness is helpful. So I do offer training programs and workshops for companies to send their staff and everybody learn together. So then that creates a common language and common framework for people to relate to one another, and they can be facilitated to say, hey, this is what we would like to see in our company, in our team as the new culture, and how do we start taking active steps personally towards that, right? So that's something that is possible, and I think there are different kinds of consulting firms who also do that. And what's really important is, of course, that if you're in a leadership position, that you take the effort and the investment to work on yourself as well, because to discover how or which are some of your behaviors that may not be experienced as nurturing or safe by your staff. I always say, right, if people knew that what they're doing is not helpful, they wouldn't do it. So most of the time, you're not aware, you're not conscious. Be open to feedback. I think if you persistent and consistent enough in soliciting for honest feedback from your staff and also consistent in appreciating their feedback and not like if they criticize you, then you like don't like them. I think if you're very open to growing yourself personally, then that creates the tone and manner for your staff to also see that, hey, you know, it's okay to not be perfect and to learn and to grow. So when they see the leader doing that, when they see the leader being open to criticism and feedback, and they see the leader being able to shift, to change or evolve or adapt based on the feedback, then they feel encouraged. And that has a tremendous psychological effect on helping people to feel like, hey, I can believe that change can be for real. But it really takes the leader exemplifying that themselves. Otherwise, you know, I've seen so many companies, they hire a lot of consulting firms, they do 360 feedback and they do all these things. And then I'm sure you all have heard then the employees are still cynical or skeptical, say, so much wayang, then nothing changed. So I always encourage, if you're the CEO, you're the head of the department, if you're whatever, you need to work on yourself first. Because once you embody something different, you don't need all these things. The way you behave, the way you are, becomes a role model that sets the tone for how other people can respond. Yeah.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying Wise and Shine so far. I'm your host Reggie, aka your Chief Financial Coconut, and for us to continue to do this show so that you become a tad bit wiser every week, you gotta like, share, subscribe, help us beat the algorithm. But even more importantly, if you can, comment in the comment section below. Let us know your thoughts and also some questions that you would love us to answer. Yep, now back to the show. Can we go a little bit into the empathetic listening thing? Yeah, what are some ideas, insight that are important?
First of all, like when I'm speaking to you, if I say something like, are you catching 100% of what I'm saying? Or are you able to catch whether as I'm saying something, you are having an idea of what to say to me next? So if you're formulating something, then you're not fully present, right? So a lot of us, I've come across different people who, when they're listening, they're already formulating a response or an argument. Or sometimes when we are sitting, you know, and we're listening to something, some of us will be like, oh yeah, I know that already. We have an assumption that we know that already. So when we have the assumption, we may know 30% of what the person is saying, but whatever's coming behind may be different from what we're expecting. But we've already shut our minds to listening. So we are actually missing critical information, right? So empathic listening is really, you know, the practice of being fully present and not having any assumptions and being aware that, you know, I'm not in this conversation to prove a point or prove that I'm right or sell a point, for example, but really to hear what is this person saying to me that they would like me to understand. I think that's the best kind of like a guidepost for empathy, saying what is the person in front of me saying that they really like me to understand. And if you can have that question and intention in your mind as you're listening to somebody, you may catch like beyond the words that they're saying, you may be able to catch the stuff that they're not saying, but that they're feeling inside. Then you'll be like, oh, I didn't know. You discover something, this new information, right? And that's quite different from what you might have.
Yeah, well, even this is about workplace. When I was listening to them, I was thinking, actually in a family also this applies.
Of course.
Like everything that you just said, if I switch the lens to instead of being in the workplace, but as a parent to my kids and listening them tell me, even though sometimes I'm like, yeah, the Lego job lah, so. I'm like putting that out. Then I'm like, oh yeah, you're feeling frustrated because the Lego
it's not about the Lego itself.
Yeah, it's not about the Lego, it's about their feelings.
And you're perfectly capable of understanding the emotion. It's just whether in that moment you're mindful to be present to that, rather than you're focused on, I need to get this thing done. You know, because there's a lot of busy moms and dads do, right? I need to get this thing done. So we're not being mindful to our kid.
Fair.
Yeah, and to be fair, that has happened, right? Like I have some instances where my kid tells me something and I discount the severity of it on him because I was busy with something else. I only heard the words, but I didn't hear his feelings behind it.
Oh, I love that.
And then later on, when my husband tells me, I'm like, oh. Now that I'm not working on anything else, you tell me now, I see it. Then I'll go to my kid and I'm like, sorry, mommy didn't get it. You were really upset, right? I thought it was something, but thank you for telling me. Then I had to like do a bit of repair work later.
You sound like a really, you know, enlightened parent. I mean, we can't always, you know, be 100% there in the moment, but I think being able to realize it soon after and, you know, tend to it, I think that's wonderful. And
hopefully also by demonstrating this often, like the other party also starts to, because it's two-way communication, right? The other party also starts to learn that we may not always be the best at picking it up. Like whether it's your parent or your boss or your colleague, they may not always pick up on what we're trying to say. But if we know that they're not intentionally doing it to, invalidate our emotion, we will at least try again.
Yeah. Fair.
Like, hey, I was trying to tell you how upset I was. How you were? Then like 2 days later, the person finally gets
Yeah. Fair.
I found that a lot of managers and bosses actually do appreciate candidness, like frankness from their staff, but they may not always have the presence of mind or the time or the bandwidth to initiate like a heart-to-heart talk with you. But it doesn't mean that they're not open to hearing you when you do reach out. And I've also met like many employees who just like they have something to say, but before they even approach their boss, they are making a lot of assumptions and conclusions that people don't listen, no, it's no point, like, so they don't even try. So I think if we want to help contribute to a better culture at work in our own workplaces, what it takes is for each of us to exercise a little bit of courage and take a chance. Just take a chance. Like if you haven't had a conversation with someone, don't assume that it's going to go bad. Just have that conversation and be open to being surprised. I always say 50% chance. Either you have it, you have the conversation, it goes well, it doesn't go well. Take a chance. But you might discover that it's actually okay.
Yeah, fair. And just now you were talking a little bit about your work, and how organizations get you to kind of come together and work with the team. And that to me sound like consensus building, right? Essentially, a great workplace is a workplace that everybody kind of want to be there, which is from the start, we've kind of established this, right? So can you kind of give us some idea from how to get this going? Or how do you actually do this, build a great workplace like that?
Well, I think it starts from everybody just having awareness as to how important and how potentially impactful this can be for their own well-being.
So how potentially impactful can it be? A great workplace.
So this is the boss asking, right?
Yeah. Sell me the idea. Why great workplace
Your
is good,
videos
right?
get edited faster.
Imagine from being burnt out and like grouchy and then physically literally falling sick and taking MCs to a team that is like excited to come to work and feeling very at ease, just speaking their minds to each other, swapping ideas, brainstorming, and then just being supportive of each other. I think literally you could see projects that used to get derailed will get back on track, or the losses that you used to make because of things just not panning out, or just clients not having a good experience because your own staff members are so overwhelmed that they're not paying enough attention to the client, that you could recover business. You could have clients who are super fantastic and happy because your team is just like super on the ball because they are energized. They're not spending 80% of their energy unconsciously trying to deal with their own unhappiness, but they're channeling all their energy to creating results for the team and for the company.
No, I buy that sell. I'm not against that sell, right? But I'm just curious, like, are there data to prove a little bit of this,
Oh, I didn't cite any data, but I'm sure if you went to Google something like how much
happier people work better.
I know. Where you can find that data. Where find all the big 4 papers.
Yeah, big 4 confirm, right? Some paper,
And I
KPMG.
think the key thing would be, I think managing attrition, right? If less people leave, then you rehiring, retraining, all that is business cost, right? If you have people who are willing to stay, happy to stay, then you also then build that well of experience that you're not able to build because staff keeps churning, right? But if you have people who are staying 5 years, 10 years, and they've seen the journey, I think there's a lot that can be tapped there and a lot of savings for the company as well. So,
Fair.
I just wanted to add to that, one of the tangible fruits of these things, right, is that, I'll just use an example to illustrate. I was once in an organization where the salespeople were very good friends with the operations and the delivery teams. And because of that friendship, and that happened because their manager were all very encouraging and supportive of one another. Oh, you need to go and see that department, go spend time, hang out, don't have to just eat lunch with your own department or us, So that cross-department camaraderie came about, and it motivated the salespeople to deal with the rejections better. Because they were very motivated to go and work and secure jobs, right? So that their friends in operations actually have work to do and will not be fired because redundant.
it's like a very powerful added motivation.
So it can actually result in actual revenue numbers as well if the culture is right.
Yeah. Fair. That's interesting. and to put it out there, I run a fully remote team, right? And let's be very clear, it's very hard to build culture. So I've gotten to a position where I feel like, we need to do some like team building, everybody come together type of situation, yeah, it's just what it is.
Company
Lah.
retreat.
Yeah, company
Or
retreat.
Meet the salesperson and the ops team be best friends.
Yeah. You know, it's an interesting thing. Okay, that's good. I think we chat a lot about it. Any last things you want to ask or any other
I
things?
thought this was really useful. You gave a lot of like both tangible and intangible evidence and strategies on which people can use. I actually was gonna bump in and ask the question of what if people don't have the money to go and hire someone to teach to create, but then you answered it in your elaboration as well, so I thought that was great.
Well, if you want a very cost-effective way,
National Library. National Library.
Exactly.
All free books are amazing.
There are a lot of books on
Yeah.
emotional awareness, emotional literacy. I think you could start by, number one, if you're a leader, take the first step to shore up your own emotional understanding, vocabulary, literacy, awareness, management skills. And as you are exploring that, share whatever you're learning, books, media, videos with your team. So when people are exposed to the same learning resources, then and they're interested, they start discussing it. And if you start role modeling it, with time, you will see that, hey, you know, there are shifts. People pick up new behaviors, or I think we don't need to make a KPI like everybody needs to do a reflective journal every single day. I think that's just a bit taking it too much. But I think when we get on the journey ourselves and we share, like how I've shared with my team, how I've shared with my parents, people take whatever that they wish to learn from it that benefits them. And over time, you will see that accumulates. It's like exercising. You just do 5 minutes a day, you don't see anything. But then after a while, you'll be like, hey, I feel fitter. I can go up the stairs without panting. My pants are like looser. So it's all these things that we make an effort to do in small steps intentionally every day. It will spill over to those people around us as well.
Yeah, fair. Okay, so we flip the question around about building a great workplace, right? And with that as the last question, you know, what is one takeaway that you've picked up from this discussion? Some tips that will help you build a better workplace.
I think what Carrie said about the leaders just going out there to, number one, be aware, and then getting the resources that they need to start changing that, and then role modeling it. This would be the 3 steps that I remember clearest from this discussion.
Okay, you see, start is good one. You see, I wanted to say something, but and you, what is something that you took away about building a better workplace? It may not be from us, you know, maybe something you, as you say, is like, oh, you're enlightened from it.
Well, I think the first step starts with believing that change is possible, and then taking ownership to effect that change within yourself.
Nice.
Then a lot of things will fall into place.
Nice. Okay, for me, it's role modeling, right? I think that's the most important, because I do observe my guys using my words. Same lingua franca, right? I was like, at first it was a bit weird, because my guys was like, I want to just get some clarity on that. I was like, when do you ever start using these words? You know, it's like, then I'll say things like, I'm not here to judge anybody. I just want to hear what you're saying, right? Not judging, not fault-finding exercise, right? And
actually, it's very similar to parenting. We always think that, we want our parents to learn this. We tell them this. But actually, the majority of what they learn is not what you said, but how you behaved and acted.
Yeah.
And it's the same at the workplace.
Yeah. And it moves now. People start using the language. They operate in a certain way. When we got new joiners, they kind of propagate that culture over time. And I think it's very nice, because that is the place that I want to work in. And they also find joy in working in this type of environment. And great lah. Everybody's happy. We get good work done. You paid well. Live your life. Woohoo! You know?
And that's possible.
Yeah. Nice. Okay, and thank you.
Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you, Carrie, for joining us. And if you'd like to find Carrie, you can connect with her on LinkedIn.
Yes. If you're curious to check out my content, is on Thriving with Carrie T on TikTok and on Instagram.
Nice.
There
Thank you.
We'll see you guys in the next one.
See ya.
See you.